One of the most dramatic changes we've experienced in the 21st century is the way we access and consume information. Today, the opportunities and challenges for public libraries around the world. Washington Full Circle starts right now. Welcome to Washington Full Circle. I'm Furman Patterson. In fiscal year 2015, more people visited D.C. public libraries than attended home games for Washington's professional baseball, hockey, and basketball teams combined. The D.C. Public Library sees this as a huge opportunity, and the library's executive director, Richard Reyes-Gavilan, tells us why. Thanks so much for stopping by and telling us why.
Well, this is great to be here. Thank you so much for having us.
Now, that number is about 4 million or more. Tell us about that.
Well, I guess, about 4 million people, a little bit over 4 million people walked into our 26 facilities last year, and you're right about that number surpassing the home attendance for those sports teams. And I think the number is important because a lot of times people just don't understand the impact that libraries have. Especially for folks who have maybe been away from their library for a while. They might be busy with their jobs, and they've got a Kindle, and they've got all these other things. And you realize that libraries are actually more popular than ever by virtue of our sort of shifting service model from one that is just kind of book oriented to one that is more sort of community education oriented.
And that's why that statistic amazed me so much, because you think mainly because you haven't been to a library for so long, but you get the sense that, okay, the library attendance was dwindling. But to see that put in that context, with sports games is amazing. Yeah,
well, I mean, in D.C., which was a very specific case here, the city has invested so much money into its facilities, renovating branches all over the city, creating new phenomenal inspirational centers of learning that, people are just attracted to the various spaces, the study spaces, the community spaces, the technology, the books, the spaces to hang out, the spaces for kids to game. There are so many different activities now taking place under one roof that it really has quickly and quietly transformed into these just kind of thriving community hubs.
And I got a chance to see that in action. This past Sunday, I visited Petworth Library, which is in my old neighborhood. And this was on a Sunday, and the library was just teeming with activity. It was A&C meetings. There were kids reading in one section, adults in another. There was a media room on the lower level, and that was full of young people, maybe college students, but I was just amazed. It wasn't a library of my childhood.
Yeah, so, in your childhood, there was probably one activity going on in that library at any one time, give or take. You'd have a bunch of people studying or some people taking out books. But now it's really just the books are just part of this kind of overall suite of services that the library offers. And, the Petworth Library is one of our busiest libraries in the city.
Go Petworth.
Yeah, go Petworth. I want to say almost 200,000 people a year walk into that beautiful building. And you walk into that building and you just get a sense of, this is a building I want to come in and stay in. Everything from the beautiful mosaic on the floor to the light coming through the reading rooms. It's a gorgeous place. And, why wouldn't the community want to make use of that for all sorts of reasons?
And that library, there were changes. It was remodeled and reimagined, different than the library. I mean, on the exterior, it looks the same,
right?
More beautiful, but there were things different. Is that what's occurring with the other libraries, or are you rebuilding libraries completely?
We've got a lot of different projects going on. Some projects are like Petworth. They are renovations of interior spaces. Others are brand new buildings that are coming up from the ground. But inside, we are sticking to this notion that libraries are evolving and that they are really for people as opposed to for formats. So every library, regardless of whether it's a renovation or a new building, you try and figure out, and we do a lot of outreach to the community before we start a project. So we have focus groups for kids, for seniors, for job seekers, for teens, and say, what do you want out of your building? How big do you want your reading space to be? Is private study space really important to you? The technology center, how important is that to the community? And you realize that once you aggregate all these things, you developed a building plan that's pretty unique for every neighborhood. But you do that work before the building and before the design starts, just to make sure that you're building something that's appropriate for the neighborhood.
Now, you're no stranger to the library system,
right,
and rebuilding libraries. What's been the most surprising thing you've discovered in this line of work about how we use libraries?
So I just celebrated my 20th anniversary working in public libraries this past fall.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And I've been part of that whole transformation. So when I got my first job at the New York Public Library in 1995, our buildings were really, everything that I did was more or less about the collections, about the books.
Right.
And that was sort of our goal as staff, to get people more or less working with our books and checking out as many books as possible. And nowadays, the staff that we hire, not only are they smart about books and reading, but about technology and software, and now emerging technologies, 3D printing, CNC machines, how to conduct an interview for a job interview. I'm really surprised at how the libraries have been able to very organically sort of diversify. And while you're in it, you don't see it happening. But I took a little stock this past year because of that 20th anniversary, and it really is, it's really astounding.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Lots more to talk about. Stay put. More on the information revolution taking place in libraries today. That's the key to the library of tomorrow. Washington Full Circle will return in just a moment. Welcome back to Washington Full Circle, and today's look at creating 21st century libraries that complement the information revolution. Now, speaking of revolution, this library, the MLK Library, the main library in the city, is about to undergo some major renovation. Tell us about that.
Yeah, in fact, we shy away from the word renovation because I think that conjures up this notion of new paint, new carpeting, maybe some improved light fixtures. We like to call it a modernization of this library. So this building opened in the early 1970s. It was designed in the mid-60s, and it was designed really for one thing, and that was this concept of it's a space for people to go in, get their books, and get out. And now we've got an opportunity with over 400,000 square feet of interior space to create what I call the most thriving destination for learning that the city has ever seen. So a few of the things that we've already talked about, creating spaces for people to come in and learn in new and exciting ways. Doing that with this and just an incredible amount of space is so exciting for us. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have not only computers, but spaces in which people can study, and spaces in which people can enjoy a cup of coffee, and outdoor space on our new rooftop so that we can have reading groups, and spaces in which people can record music, and spaces in which people can rehearse. So any kind of learning that you can think of is going to be feasible within this new building. And that doesn't exist right now. And beyond that, creating a building that really is about people. So right now, the building struggles with the fact that when you walk in, you're not quite sure where to go. It's not the most inviting of buildings. Mm-hmm. It doesn't fill you with wonder. It doesn't fill you with a sense of what's possible. And you alluded to the Petworth Library, and you feel that at Petworth.
Yeah, you do.
You don't feel that at the MLK Library. So that is one of our main goals, is to make that building more legible, more attractive, more again, just more wonderful. You know, we're taking our children's space, which is right now maybe 5,000 square feet of space. You walk in there, the staff does great work, but they do it in spite of the surroundings. In our new building, we're going to have maybe 3 times that much space for kids, including an amphitheater, a slide that will take them down to the first floor, just learning in such exciting ways that people have never dreamed possible in this landmark building.
Now you talk about children. I want to mention something, Star Books from Birth. Tell us about that, what that's all about.
Yeah, the STAR program is a early childhood initiative that the library has had for the last few years. It impresses upon parents and caregivers the importance of reading, singing, talking to your children every single day. A lot of times, and I'll use my own parents as an example, you know, for them, schooling, you know, learning starts when you get to school. Mm-hmm. What we're telling people is that all the research now shows that learning starts from the minute you're born. And one of the most important things that researchers have seen that separates kids who do well in school versus kids who don't do well in school is exposure to language and words. So the STAR program is a library's program to help parents understand that, look, when you're in the grocery store, tell your kids what you're buying. You just constantly have to hear new words. And what the Books from Birth program, which is something that we just launched last month, is going to help us accelerate that message in profound ways. So the Books from Birth program is a new program that allows children under the age of 5 in the district whose parents register, they will receive a free book at their home every single month to keep until they age out of the program at age 5. So potentially 60 books for each kid in the district who's born here will, and that is going to allow for just an amazing amount of not only access to reading material, and we know that it's so important for kids to have reading material in their home that's theirs, because it creates a sense of ownership, it creates a love of reading, and what our job is to impress upon parents, again, look, it's not just having kid books in the house, but open those books. Even if a parent, him or herself, struggles with reading, point to the colors, point to what's happening in the book. Just make sure that kids make sure that this love affair with reading starts at a very early age. And again, research shows that by the time kids get to kindergarten or other milestones like 3rd grade, this early literacy work has an incredible impact on their future success in school. So it's a really, really important program for us.
Now, DC is a global city, and I just wondering, how does the library, the new libraries of the future, tackle the diversity issue in the services it presents?
It's a great question. I think that the role of the library is to make sure that we are taking advantage of the fact that we've got a campus of 26 buildings all over the city. Wow. And that our the folks who use libraries in one part of the city are very different than folks who use libraries in other parts of the city. We know that there are differences in income levels at home, in education attainment, in job attainment. So our goal is to always tailor our services to the neighborhoods that we are servicing. So, for example, the Books from Birth initiative that I was just talking about, all of our outreach in around that program is in Ward 7, 8, 5, and some other underserved parts of the city, because we know that's where the challenge is the greatest in terms of early literacy attainment. Other programs are similar. So in terms of how we dole out technology, how we dole out reading programs, we really look at what is the greatest need in that particular neighborhood, and we target those services in such a way that we are really creating. It's almost like it's a suite of services that, when aggregated, equals what the library does.
Right.
But it is very much tailored to different neighborhoods.
And quickly before we go, those millions of people we talked about in the beginning, where do they go while this library is being renovated?
We are working that out. we, first of all, have an incredible network of branch libraries, which are open 7 days a week, and there are very, very few cities in the country that have 7-day-a-week libraries. So we've got 25 other libraries. We are going to have some interim spaces in downtown DC. Those have not been worked out yet. And then we're going to be relying on partners all over the city to help us get our message out. We're going to take doing a lot of outreach into very unique places. So stay tuned.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Some children's books stick around for generations. Why? Because the lessons they teach are timeless. More when Washington Full Circle returns. Thanks so much for joining
Thanks
us.
for having me.
Welcome back to Washington Full Circle. Though they may be short on pages, children's books can be packed with wisdom. They teach about friendship, sharing, acceptance, and even envy. Author Cheryl Bond Nelms is here to tell us about Eric, an earthworm who's green with envy. Thanks so much for stopping by to tell us about Eric.
Thank you for having me.
Now, children's books are amazing, sell amazingly. Just reading about how well they sell, I'm wondering what made you want to jump into that industry?
Well, I don't even think I picked the industry. The story picked me. And I decided that I should put this story down because you know when you get an idea that you can't get rid of, that even if you don't want to do it, you have to do it. That's how Eric hit me.
Now, this age group that you're geared toward, what are we talking about? What age group?
I'd say about 5 to 7 or 8 years old. It's really a children's first book.
And children are experiencing that pangs of envy that early?
That's the interesting thing. I think we all experience envy at some times, even when we don't want to. It's such a sneaky emotion. It comes up on you and you're going, oh, I don't want to feel like that. And then what do you do with it?
Right.
So, you know, envy, kids these days, I know they have a lot of challenges.
And in that age group, what do you have to gear the writing towards? How do you know words, phrases, rhythm? What's the guidelines for books for children that
For
age?
this one, because you wanted it to start very early, being the first book, I kept the words simple. I didn't even use the word envy in the copy because that might be too complicated for some young kids to understand.
Right.
But the feeling of it is there, not the word. But it was a very interesting a topic for me to even delve in with kids, but they have so many things to deal with these days, and envy, and everyone's on social media, and they're into sneakers, or they do this or that, and how do you handle that? I mean, even some adults have a problem with envy.
Yeah, set the story for us. What happens in Eric the Earthworm?
Eric is a very happy earthworm, and he lives in a park in the city, and he admires all the sights and sounds that he sees every day. He loves watching people and the balloons and horses and kids, and he's just happy all the time. And then all of a sudden he starts looking around and goes, oh, I love balloons, I wish I could do that, or oh, look at the caterpillar, he has so many legs, I wish I had that. Oh, the ant, he's so strong, I wish I could do that. And then there, the worm who can camouflage himself in a leaf. Wow, that's great. I wish I could do that. And he went from admiration to envy. He started feeling bad about himself when he started envying these things. And he was late coming home for dinner, and his mother looked at him and knew that something was different about him. And he described to her that he loved all these things, and she said, okay, wait a minute, let's go back up to the surface and work over this.
And he learns how to deal with those.
She helps him learn, because he still doesn't get it. When she says, okay, look, we just came up to the surface. What do you think about that? He goes, why? So what? You know? And she said, well, you've got to be pretty strong to move all that earth. So you're just as strong as the ant is.
Right.
You know, and how about all the legs that caterpillar has? Well, caterpillar can't go underground with all his legs. So you can do something that caterpillar can't. And how about the worm that camouflages himself in a leaf? You can camouflage yourself with the trunk of the tree. You know, and then he realizes, I guess I'm cool too.
So kids are actually learning lessons that early, and I understand that you want to keep teaching those lessons. You have more books planned?
I do. Eric was a series based on the 7 deadly sins, and envy was the first one I started with.
Terrific.
So hopefully we'll get the other 6, but we'll see.
Now, why is it so important for kids to start reading and looking at books so early?
Well, because it helps them open their minds to experiences, helps you read. Reading is so important for our education. How can you further if you're not a good reader or you don't like to read? And Eric is beautifully illustrated, so he draws you in with all the colors and all the instances that he's experiencing in the park. And it helps you stay with the story. And that was hard too, finding an illustrator that you really like their illustrations. It's, you know, it's kind of difficult.
Now, seeing a child read your book for the very first time, what was that feeling like?
It was very interesting because, you know, I liked the story, but I didn't know if a kid was going to like the story. And I gave him to a friend that I work with. Her child was Eric's age group. And she came back to me and she said he's reading it all the time. He's sleeping with it, and she took a picture to show me, and he was holding Eric. So
congratulations.
That felt good.
Thank you so much, and congratulations on the book, and hope to see more of them.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. That was it for Washington Full Circle. Thanks to our guests, and thanks to you at home for watching. We'll see you again next time.